Hey guys, V-Man for No Budget Productions here, and today we are going to be doing a Constar commentary on the fan film Cageless. So, yeah, here we go. So, here we are. This is basically. Go and pause. I'll be pausing through the commentaries whenever I feel like I need to make a comment, just so I'm not rushing through everything. So this is basically talking about how Talos 4 had begun, uh, you know, the kind of beginnings and everything through Talos 4 and the devastation, whatnot, and everything that happened. Basically, giving the backstory to those who may not know the backstory to it. Not everything, not everyone would be the hardcore Trekkie that we are, so I felt the need to give the backstory to it, and then talking about what happened with the SS Columbia and Christopher Pike, and after the mission, General Order 7, and preventing anyone from going to the planet, and penalty of death, which was something that I found in the menagerie. They talk about anyone that goes to this planet would be given penalty of death, which I always found, the death penalty in the Federation, like, that's really weird, So I felt like that needed to be addressed in the film, even if it's kind of sidestepped in a way, but I felt that it was important to put that here. And then here at the end of this, I have the crew of the USS Enterprise. We're split up, after this mission. Thus, we begin the film. So I really wanted to set the stage for this film, indicating, that Menard was part of that mission in some small way, and that this was, top secret. So here we come down. This is the Frakes shot where you go from the very top, go down. He does that in a lot of his films, and I really wanted to do that here. And there's my good friend Cordy with the Back to the Future hat. Now, originally, this character was supposed to be number one. The character Nina Marie, who played Commander Bishop in the from Space Station B5, and she also played in The Mind's Eye. She was one of the ghost figures there. She was going to return as number one in this role, because she looks a lot like Majel Barrett, and she also looks like how she looked as number one, but she was unable to make it that day. So in the last minute shot, I was like, screw it, number one is more of a title than a name. Cordy, go ahead, you be in this role. So it wasn't my initial intent to have Cordy in this role, but he did pretty well. Sadly, in the open field this day, there was nothing but wind, and we didn't know how to. I didn't realize early on in those days that we needed to kind of take that into consideration. So, in that respect, this was a learning experience to watch out for wind, because you can't hear a lot of the movie, but that was why. But this was shot on an old highway that me and my wife drive down, and beautiful back road, and I loved how this came out. Now Scott Smith plays Captain Pike, and Scott J. Smith plays Captain Pike here, and he I met him on working for Star Trek Anthology for Jim Bray, and he's gone on ever since the guidelines. He went on to put the Star Trek Anthology behind him, and went on to do the series The Outer Rim. But Scott J. Smith, I always felt looked a lot like Captain Pike. So when the opportunity came to do this character, I inside I was praying, please say yes, because it doesn't really work without that character. And he of course said sure. We didn't have the cage area uniform for him, but I was, we were like, screw it, just put on, the black. A black T-shirt goes a long way to hide stuff in Star Trek. So we went that route, and I think this came out wonderfully. And I think Scott did a wonderful job as Pike, with the wisdom of command, and just being that character. And of course, since this film was put out, Anson Mount's done a wonderful job playing Pike, but to me, it was like I was when I did this character, Jeffrey Hunter, Bruce Greenwood had done, Captain Pike. We didn't quite have the Anson Mount stuff just yet, but we really only had two things to kind of shine off of for Christopher Pike, and I think Scott did a wonderful job playing this character, which at the time was, one of my favorite captains, and still is. So he did a wonderful job. I love that Back to the Future hat that Cordy has. Any chance I get to sneak that into a film, I do, because it just looks so cool. And that's my ranch that I grew up on. So this scene right here, where he says Captain Stapleton found the boy on a planet talking about an android, in the Delta Quadrant. What that is referring to is a film that actually takes place during the latter part of the Constar films, before Menard makes the jump to B5. I forget what exactly the film is named, right offhand. But it's the film where Menard and Mickle and the kind of the elderly weapons officer are down on the planet, and they find this probe, and at the end of it, they find the Jem'Hadar ship is on the scanner, and they talk to Data on the planet because they're trying to figure out like what attacked the ship. What attacked, the ship that's investigated the Delta Quadrant. And on this probe, it's a distress call from the ship. And this dude is kind of it's a Starfleet officer that's kind of gone crazy, because he's been in isolation for so long because of the attack. And he, becomes suicidal because of it. Because of being trapped in isolation. And it's kind of a dark film. And then at the end, we see who the attacker was, and it is the Jem'Hadar. And that was kind of my nod into transitioning from pre-Dominion and then post-Dominion. But in the after credits, Beverly calls up Menard and talks about how they found a boy in the Quad Lithium and has disappeared. And this is what they've been referring to here. The boy is gone into the past, and this is kind of one of those kind of circular loops of time travel. So what that boy is referring to is something that hasn't happened yet. And I thought that would be fun to the hardcore Constar fans, to where if you're paying attention, when we get to that point, you're like, oh, I know what he's referring to. So I always like doing stuff like that in my films, to where if you're paying attention, you get it. If you're not, no harm, no foul. But I thought that would be a lot of fun. So, and I'm always doing that in the films. If you're paying attention, the hardcore fans will always pick up on the stuff that I do. So, And this was played by one of the wonderful comic pop uh, interviewers, Jonathan. And that is shot in my house. Anyone who stalks me on Facebook will know where that's at. Good old Menard in his red and blue. And I wore the Nebraska hat because it was a nod to my childhood because I grew up in Nebraska, so I felt that it was appropriate to put that, kind of a nod to my childhood. But again, this is them going back and forth and talking and having that conversation of, about how Menard kind of feels slighted from Starfleet, about how they're not even allowed to talk about stuff. And then, he joined Starfleet for wanting that sense of family and kind of being pissed off about, how can Starfleet do this to us? And, we're, there's a death penalty if we even talk about this, if we go back there, if we talk about this stuff and, and Cordy's character says, well, that's not exactly true, because I wanted to address that and go, I don't really believe they have the death penalty, but I wanted to put that out there, because I can't believe that this perfect federation would have that, but I wanted to put that out there and be like, is this, is this a misinterpretation of this law, or is this the law? And I wanted to kind of stoke the fire and open up that conversation and maybe we'll return there, maybe we won't. But I felt that it was something that should at least be addressed. Like, what is this? Because no one else has ever commented on that, or at least at the time. And I think they brought that up in Star Trek Discovery, how this warrants the death penalty. But again, it's kind of glossed over, and I'm like, no, you can't gloss over something like that, I mean, that's an important thing, yeah. And so this Cordy, of course, convinces Menard, hey, Starfleet still needs you, get your shit together. So Menard, like that. This film, and a lot of reasons, I really wanted to have Menard back in his, Cage era uniform. And of course, I block out using the comm box there. I block the patch that's on my shirt because the patch that's on this uniform is the Valiant patch. But of course, Menard at this point isn't stationed on the Valiant. So of course, he wouldn't have that patch. He would have the Enterprise patch. But I don't have the Enterprise patch. So I blocked that out by simply shooting the comm box over, put it in front of the patch and shoot that way. And then you can hide the fact that you don't have two separate uniforms. You just have the one. And in filmmaking, you have to be creative that way. And, it's not what is actually there in filmmaking. It's what the audience perceives. That goes a long way in filmmaking. But any chance to put myself in the red Cage era uniform, I like to do, because that's one of my favorite uniforms. Once I get to the fan film dive, I think you guys will understand that one. Because I think that's a wonderful film. In fact, I may do commentary on that one next, because I think that, in fact, I think I should have started with that one, because I think that one, I think that one takes place first in the timeline, but that one was just an excuse to put on the mullet wig and the red Cage era uniform and just have a little fun. But any chance I get to wear my red Cage era uniform is, it's a beautiful looking uniform. The material's good. And I like the look of the Cage era uniform. But this is my scene with Captain Pike. And this is Pike basically telling Menard, like, you're ready for chief engineer. And of course the joke is being made for, go to the Valiant on Tuesday, which is a Star Trek Generations joke, about everything being ready for on Tuesday. But I put that in there because I thought that would be funny for those people again who pick it up. I like to put those Easter eggs in there. But I felt this film had a lot of charm to it. I think the only thing wrong with the film, honestly, is the audio. If I could go back and redo it, I would. I don't ADR my films, or very seldom. If I have to, I do it very light, because I feel like on these films, it's, you learn from your mistakes and you just focus on the next one and make that one better. But I feel like this film, for everything that we did, I feel like for everything we did wrong, I felt like we did a lot of things right. The story was really good. The acting from the actors was really good. And there's a lot of heart in this film. So, yeah, that being said, I won't keep you guys any longer. I appreciate everything that you guys do to support the channel, and I appreciate you guys being on this adventure with me. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys enjoyed the Constar commentary. Join us next time.